Check out BillyCBoxing.com now or feel the...
Billy C will be right back.
It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you listen, hope you're doing all right today. As you can see, starting off with the show, pressing all kinds of buttons today with these fat fingers. I don't know. I didn't hit the right one at first. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located on beautiful St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And apparently I'm going to go... Apparently, I'm going all the way there for some wings, too, next time, but that's another story. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to the show. Just visit barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Looking to get a signed copy? Don't worry about it. Visit the website, BillyCBoxing.com. Click on the book. Can't miss it. And don't forget, that fat guy in the red suit who's going to be cramming his fat ass down your chimney soon. What's better than a book from me to one of your peoples that's on your Christmas list? That's right, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, makes a great Christmas gift. Fits right in a stocking. If you're looking to get more than one copy, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com. Got some big fights this weekend. Specifically, Vasyl Lomachenko going up against Guillermo Rigondeaux. We will be breaking down and giving you our predictions on that fight, as well as some of the ones I personally favor this weekend. So coming up a little bit later, we will be giving you breakdowns and predictions on the Jean Pascal fight against Ahmed Ibilai tonight. As well as Saturday, James DeGale against Caleb Truax. Like I told you, the Rigondeaux-Lomachenko fight, the Orlando Salido-Mickey Roman fight, plus Daniel Dubois, Triple D, if you will, a heavyweight we're keeping an eye on from England. We'll talk about his fight as well. But first, some news I wanted to talk about. Now, ESPN has been doing fights for a long time. And for a good portion, at least for the last decade or so, we got to watch Friday night fights. And that went bye-bye thanks to Al Heyman. But what we've seemed to have taken in its place is some pretty big, high-profile fights, specifically promoted by Top Rank, and a deal that they cut with ESPN. One of the things about ESPN that you like or don't like, or let me rephrase that I like and sometimes don't like, is Teddy Atlas. Now, it's not because I don't think this guy knows his stuff, because he does. There's not as many knowledgeable boxing guys as Teddy Atlas. Now, my hang-up with Teddy, and I've said this many, many times, is that Teddy Atlas will give you his opinion on something and not listen to yours. His opinion is right, and if you don't agree with him, everybody else is wrong. He's been in the press lately for, any time a judge has a different score than he writes with his crayon on his coloring book during the broadcast. It's a robbery. It's a foul. It's this. It's an outrage. That's all Teddy Atlas. But with all that said, Teddy Atlas is still an entertaining compliment, in my opinion, to the ESPN boxing broadcast. It was announced the other day, specifically Wednesday, that Teddy Atlas will not be on the broadcast for the Lomachenko-Guillermo Rigondeaux fight this Saturday night. And one of the reasons was because the last time he was on, that he was kind of having a verbal sparring contest with Mark Kriegel, who's a new addition to the ESPN broadcast. And apparently the powers that be decided that they would rather stick with Joe Tessitore, Mark Kriegel, Timothy Bradley, and then, of course, Bernardo Osuna, and a guy who doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook, Stephen A. Smith. I'm not so sure I support that. Joining me right now with his thoughts is my man, Sal Rocky Senecola. Sal, Teddy Atlas, I've been critical of him in the past. You've been neutral, but, you've said pros and cons about him. But at the end of the day, he kind of is synonymous with the ESPN broadcast. What's your thoughts about them kicking him to the curb for this weekend's big fight?
Well, not only is he synonymous, but he also, he does know boxing. Let's face it. He knows boxing. How he relates and articulates it is a matter of opinion. I think he does a good job and better job at times, more times than not. And I called it. Every time you say something you're not supposed to say or flex your muscle, or I knew it. I saw the exact thing happen, and I said, his days are going to be numbered, and they're going to find a way to squeak him out. But whenever you talk up against the suits, or whatever you do, and you put somebody in their place because it's your opinion, it's your, it's how you feel, you're going to be at least penalized, or at least get the ruler over the knuckles. And I think that's what happened just right here. You're going to see the same thing. I called it with Roy Jones Jr. He flexes his muscle and his opinion, and he tells those guys, hey, guess what? That's not what just happened, and that's not just what I saw. This is what I saw. So it's a matter of time before Roy Jones gets a little bit of a benchmark set,
Well, listen, I would much rather listen to Roy Jones. We're not talking about Roy here, but Roy Jones, to me, just he bothers me in a different manner than Teddy Atlas.
I know.
But with all that said, Teddy Atlas seems, and he and Joe Tessitore seem to click. Sometimes they kiss his ass a little too much. But this guy, Mark Kriegel, who they introduced the last broadcast, this guy knew nothing about boxing. He was a writer. Big deal. I have no idea how he even got in there. And, Teddy has a tendency to challenge non-boxing guys. And I got to support him for that. The truth of the matter is what boxing needs is boxing people. Teddy Atlas is a boxing guy, whether you like him or not. Sometimes I like watching him, sometimes I don't. I'm critical of him sometimes, and sometimes I'm not. But the one thing I admire about Teddy is that he's a boxing guy. He's a boxing guy in the boxing business, calling a boxing event. That's what should happen. Joe Tessitore is a blow-by-blow guy. He's an announcer. He's that guy that you need to drive the bus, so to speak. And I don't have a problem with him. Timothy Bradley is candy, a little sweetening in a pot with a fighter's perspective. That trio is fine. Mark Kriegel doesn't fit in. He's not a boxing guy. He's a writer. He's not a boxing expert. He's a writer, and he's a jerk, as it is. I agree with Teddy Atlas 100%. As far as Bernardo Osuna, this guy, every time he mentions somebody's name, hey, joining the ring right now is Ricardo Lopez. Come on, man. I get it with him and the pronunciation and all of that. But, even if you put all those guys aside, to have Stephen A. Smith part of the broadcast, even in a limited manner, is ridiculous. This guy is nothing but a loudmouth who obviously knows shit about boxing. He doesn't know a damn thing about the sport of boxing except his butt buddy, Floyd Mayweather. That's it. Why they have this guy on, I don't know, man. Your thoughts, Sal?
I'll tell you, my thoughts are going like, remember Ricochet Rabbit? Bing, bing, bing. I'll tell you. Bill, unfortunately, I mean, you're hitting on the head. You're right. And believe me, Teddy Atlas, love him or hate him, the guy knows boxing. He's a boxing guy, and I do appreciate where he comes from. And I'll tell you, what we don't see and what we do know, these guys are in their own little war room with the suits, making decisions, and they're not marketing to you or I or the diehard boxing fan because they take that for granted. That's a gimme. That's their audience. What they're doing is marketing and advertising to the general public that may turn on the fight, that are curious to see the fight, that they're going to catch her. And so they look at what's the team, what's the formula, what do they want to do? Do they want a dumbed-down guy that's going to go off the cuff? Do they want a knowledgeable guy? So they try to do different mixes. They try a different formula. And that's all they're doing. They're just experimenting a little bit. They're going to see what kind of ratings they get, what kind of favors they get, what kind of chemistry is on the air. And, you know, it's a trial thing. That's all it's doing right now. It's not permanent, but, you know, that's what these guys do. They don't market to you and I. We're the gimme. That's neither here or there. They're marketing to the mass majority of the public that is a casual boxing fan or something else, who they can get up there that has some credibility, but not a great deal of credibility, and it's not going to be questioned because they don't want their announcers questioned or confronted with, because these guys know stop. I want to say something. I almost let it go, leave my lips. They don't know squat, and on some levels. So that's why they want to dumb it down where they can, with not having to have people call them out and embarrass them and all that other stuff.
Well, you may be trying to be a nice guy or whatever, but Mark Kriegel is not a boxing guy. He's not a boxing guy. And quite frankly, neither is Joe Tessitore, and neither is Osuna. Definitely not Stephen A. Smith. I mean, listen, one of my battle cries for a long time has been boxing needs more boxing people. Listen, Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of Teddy Atlas or anything like that, but I think that he's a guy, because of his boxing background, should be part of a broadcast. Maybe ESPN is trying to lean away from him. Okay, I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong. But you don't replace him with a non-boxing guy. Find another boxing guy who can replace Teddy Atlas from a point where you want boxing people sitting behind the mics. You can't have a bunch of jabronis that don't know a left hook from a fish hook, and they're trying to, make some kind of it's a smoke. Listen, it's a smoke screen. No matter how you look at it, I totally disagree with ESPN. As much as I get aggravated by Teddy Atlas, to replace him in a sense with Mark Kriegel. Well, okay, listen. Everybody watched the broadcast this week, and give your marks on Kriegel and Tessitore and Bradley and Osruma and Stephen A. Smith, and let me know what you think, and see if you notice a void without Teddy Atlas. And no, Teddy Atlas didn't send me a check. I don't even like the guy. But anyway, speaking of battle cries, did you hear the news that Manny Pacquiao the other day was officially got promoted in the Philippine Army as a colonel? He's a colonel, a full-fledged colonel. Wow. He's now Lieutenant Colonel Manny Pacquiao. I didn't even know he was. I didn't even know he was. I didn't even know he was in the service. You know, I didn't even know that he was in the Army, let alone getting promoted to a colonel. What does that mean? I mean, Colonel Sanders was a colonel of the chicken, fried chicken. You know, Colonel Bob is an announcer for boxing. Is that what the type of is that the type of colonel that Manny Pacquiao's? He's like Colonel Manny Pacquiao. I mean, isn't that disrespectful to a true, armed forces colonel, a guy that makes rank in the armed forces because he starts out as a private peeling potatoes or whatever, and then becomes a lieutenant colonel? Isn't that kind of a slap in the face? Isn't that the same kind of thing as when we talk about all of a sudden this guy out of nowhere gets a world title shot, and you got 100 guys working their butts off in the gym, and they're being bypassed because maybe they weren't paid off. What's your thoughts?
Well, you got it right on the head, man. I'll tell you what, it could be a slap in the face, unless it's like an honorary thing. But a lieutenant colonel is not a full bird colonel, but lieutenant colonel is still high up in the ranks. Okay, and I don't know how their ranking system works in the Philippines. I'm sure it's very similar to ours. And a lieutenant colonel is somebody that's been there, done that, and has worked hard in the books, studied, has taken tests, has had their pay grade elevated. And, it says a lot. When you are a lieutenant colonel, when you are any officer in the military, it says a lot. When you are an NCO, it says a lot. When you are in the military, it says a lot. So, yes, when you're talking about people that are volunteering or recruited into an army or military, and they're working hard and they're doing what they have to do to get their pay grades or their ranking moving up and everything else, and then all of a sudden you say, hey, let's give Manny Pacquiao a lieutenant colonel status, and now he's in the military. Yeah, it could be a very disheartening event on some level to some Filipinos that are in the military that have worked hard to be there as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's an honorary thing. That's what I'm pretty much sure of that.
We mentioned the other day World Boxing Super Series, which I love the whole concept. And man, have we been treated with some great fights. And speaking of great fights, don't forget, email me your top 5 or 10, however many you feel, top 5 or 10 fights of 2017. We'll read them on air. We had some really good ones the other day that we were reading. So I want to hear from you. So email them to me, Billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com. The other day we mentioned that the semifinal bout between IBF World Cruiserweight Champ Murat Gassiev and WBA World Champion Yunir Dorticos had been scheduled in Russia for February 3rd. Well, they announced that the other semifinal bout, so the two winners will face each other for the Ali Trophy, which will put WBO World Champion Alexander Usyk going up against the WBC Champion Marius Briedis, fighting in Lativa on January 27th. I can't emphasize enough how much I love the fact that these guys, and I also love the fact that they're not American fighters. It just goes to show you about the American fighters and where their mindset is and where their value is. These other foreign to us here in the United States fighters are willing to risk it all. Every one of these names that are in the semifinals are all world champions. They're all holding one of the 4 major belts, and they're all putting them on the line to see who's the best in the division. It doesn't get any better than this. Usyk said, I don't care where I fight in Riga. There'll be 10,000 fans, and that's great. The fans should expect a beautiful and interesting battle between 2 world champions. Marius Briedis says, I had a gut feeling that the World Boxing Super Series might return to Riga because of the incredible crowd at the arena in the quarterfinal bout against Mike Perez. Now it's all about preparing for Usyk and put up a great show when January comes. They also share the same kind of tone, Sal, that, they're enjoying the competition factor. They're enjoying, challenging themselves and proving that they're the best, something we don't see with a lot of American fighters. What do you think?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the passion. That's the whole thing. I mean, when we fought in the 80s, I mean, it was just that same thing. I mean, coming up in the training camps with Duran and I mean, when he was using us as sparring partners, and Vinny Pazienza, Bobby Ches, and all that, when we were in camp and sparring and training, I mean, that's what we saw, and that's what these guys saw. They saw themselves not just wanting to fight the very best, but believing that they were the very best, and to prove it, we had to get in the ring, we had to fight the very best, and that's what is lost in the translation of today's manipulation or actually positioning of fighters that haven't earned their spot or have not taken on the challenge of challenging themselves by fighting better and better opponents. And I think that, when you look back at the fighters that do accept that responsibility and that challenge and say, hey, I'm the best. I want to prove I'm the best, so I've got to fight the best. I mean, that says it all. That's what fighting is all about, challenging yourself, going out there and taking on anybody and everybody at any given time. And that is a lost desire, lost passion, lost advertised facet of what a fighter is all about. It's not, hey, I know I could beat this guy. Let me sidestep a little bit. Let me wait here. Let's let it stack in my favor so I look good against him. No, it is putting two combatants in the ring, in the squared circle, if you will, challenging themselves and seeing who is the better man that evening, knowing that any given night anything can happen. So, bingo. Oh, there's that word again.
That's your new nickname. We're going to take a short break.
I used that yesterday in my shop, too.
When we come
I don't know where it's coming from, Billy. All of a sudden, I feel like playing bingo.
When we come back, wasn't there a dog named Bingo? I don't know. But anyway, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I got an update on Thursday Night Football. I got some sports scores. We got some emails to read. Then we're going to break down all the big fights coming your way tonight and tomorrow. Don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And I got some emails to read. So I'm going to get on to that right now. Oh, wait. Let me give you the sports scores. In Thursday night football in the NFL, the Falcons beat the Saints 20-17. I was anticipating a high-scoring game, but it was a pretty competitive game. It was enjoyable for as long as I could keep my eyelids open. The Falcons just made it interesting in that division. They're right on the heels of the Saints right now. So tough division as we wind down for the last quarter of the regular season. And speaking of the NFL, Sal, it was announced that Roger Goodell, signed his deal. And I don't know, man. I guess he settled for practically minimum wages because he signed a 5-year deal for the NFL from all the owners, a guaranteed salary of $4 million a year, plus all this incentive-laden deal, which could make him over $40 million a year. Wow. And over 5 years, Roger Goodell is in a position to make $200 million. I can't believe it. I'm appalled that the NFL would give that man or anybody in that position. I'm not just, I know there's been a lot of discussion against him specifically, but anybody in that position, that kind of money. What if one of your cooks demanded that kind of money, Sal?
Bingo. I'll tell you
Bingo.
what.
What if Bingo demanded that money? Would you give it to him?
They're gonna be looking for B3 out the door.
Unbelievable, right? $200 million possible over 5 years. Jeez,
that's unbelievable. Taxes, that is a heck of a contract. I'll tell you, I'd sign, seal, deliver that, and notarize it right away.
But then again, after taxes and some miscellaneous expenses, he probably will only pocket $100 million. I don't know how he can live on that. But anyway, over in the NBA, the Lakers topped the 76ers 107-104. The Wizards beat the Suns by 10, 109-99. The Nets beat the Thunder by 5, 100-95. Great game by the Nets. Right. They're slowly maybe riding the ship, a couple of games away from 500. The Rockets over the Jazz, 112-101. In the NHL, get ready for this, Sal. The Bruins over the Coyotes, 6-1. The Penguins beat my Islanders 4-3 in overtime. The Lightning over the Avalanche, 5-2. The Panthers beat the Jets, 6-4. The Blues over the Stars, 3-0. The Flyers over the Canucks, 4-1. The Kings beat the Senators in overtime, 4-3. The Sharks beat the Hurricanes 5-4 in overtime. And also in overtime, the Flames. Oh, those Flames, Sal. Those Flames beat up on those Canadians 3-2 in overtime. Congratulations to the Flames. But anyway, that's what took place in some other sports. We got some emails to read, so let's kick it off right now.
Oh,
this first one is from Willie, and he says, "Hey, Billy C, I thought you'd like this link." He sent a link that was to a podcast by a couple of guys over in England. I'm not going to promote it because I'm silly like that. But he says, "I haven't listened to it, but I have a feeling being in the U.S., you might not want to be able to sign in." To follow the BBC's podcast. This is the one he's talking about, which basically says that was asking the question, is Vasyl Lomachenko the greatest fighter since Muhammad Ali? I think that's a little premature. Yes. He also says, I slightly insulted you twice in the chat room, and you didn't bite. I thought to myself, Billy's not in the mood today. Sometimes I notice, sometimes I don't, Willie. But lately I haven't been in the mood for much lately, but that's besides the point. I'm getting better lately at talking about boxing in the chat room because I'm learning a bit slowly a lot about boxing by listening to what you guys say. I say slowly because there's so much to learn. The more I listen to you guys, the more I learn. That's why I always rerun the show and listen to it over again later, sometimes even twice. That's cool, man. I appreciate that, Willie, big time. Trust me, I really do.
Yes, I do too, Willie.
And he says, I had no idea how fun boxing was from the business side. I'm sorry. I had no idea how boxing was run from the business side. He says how promoters work. etc. All the underhandedness, the ruthlessness, etc. I didn't know nothing. So listening to your show is an educating experience. So I'm glad that I stumbled upon it a few years ago. The show's looking and sounding fantastic. It has a professional look and feel to it. It's it is a professional show. We're on TV and radio. You know what I can't stand, and this has nothing to do with Willie, but I can't stand when people refer to this show as A, a YouTube show, or B, a podcast. We do have this show in a version of a podcast, and we do upload the television version up on YouTube. Now, the version that people are watching on Facebook is a cheesy, crappy version that I would never send to a television network. But since Facebook only allows that kind of setup as of now, I'm for. So, yeah, we've been doing this for 14 years. We're going to be entering our 15th year, daily 2-hour plus boxing show. Come on, man. Nobody else has done that.
You don't look a day over 55 and a half.
I know. He says your recent investments in technology, hardware, software, etc. are paying off. I hope you saw the joke I saw in the chat room about the guy who was doing shagging dogs, coach in FA. Loved it. No, I didn't. Email it to me with the correct email. I just texted or I just made a mention in the chat room to Willie. He sent a virus my way the other day. When he sent this email, actually, thank God I'm an IT guy and I was able to catch it. But appreciate that, Bill. But anyway, he says, talking about Coach, what a great guy. He comes from across the chat room. Mind of inside information. Is there anything he doesn't know? I'm sure there's some things that Coach doesn't know, contrary to what you might think. I won't say. I won't say because I don't want to get his wife to kick his ass because his wife will beat the hell out of him. I know. I've met her, and she does not get the better end. I mean, he does not get the better end of his wife. Trust me, his wife drives that ship. I know. I'm only kidding. But anyway, he says, "I'll finish here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thanks for reading. I hope the podcast was good." Signed, Willie the Idiot. You're not an idiot, Willie.
Willie, you're a good man, Willie. We like you. We love you having on board here, being here, and being in the chat room.
Remember Chili Willie? You want
Chili Willie? You know what I remember when you're reading a song? Remember that song? Goes Willie, Willie won't go home.
Right? Yeah, but no, Chili Willie. Chili won't go. Okay, don't make me hit the mute button. What I was going to say is Chili Willie, the cartoon. He was a little mini penguin. Right, and he was always like saying, "You want more butter? Yeah, more butter. You know, more pancakes, more pancakes. You know."
I don't remember that.
Well, you know, whatever. You've been living under a rock
before my time.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. They didn't even have cartoons when you were a kid.
They started. What do you think the Flintstones came out with? That was inspiring.
Hanna-Barbera. I love the Flintstones. Come on, Dino. But anyway. Joel has an email. It says, I was curious if I can get the official Billy C and Sal predictions for Jean-Pascal and Med Ibilii. Yes, you will. I'm going to be doing those right after this break, right after we finish the emails. He says, what would some guys that we would like to see face the winner, I think is what he meant. First and foremost, Rigondeaux's moving up 2 weight classes, so I wouldn't want him to move up. Lomachenko, I don't know. I think that this fight is. I think we really got to watch this fight, Sal, and see the performance from both of these guys. This is one of these fights that it's a win-win. Whether they lose, It's a win-win as long as they both perform well. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, and and here we go again. Everybody wants to test and make every fighter into a heavyweight. And, there's limits. It's like Clint Eastwood used to say, a man's got to know his limitations. And the guy's great at any weight class. But, let's keep him where he feels comfortable, where he's fighting and where he's a champion right now. Unless he tells us otherwise, he's great at the weight class he's fighting in. And he is it's great. These guys both these combatants are special fighters. And I know that Vasyl Lomachenko wants to be something very, very special to the game of boxing. He's not just looking at this fight. This guy wants to be on the map as being somebody really special, contributing to the sport of boxing. That's what he wants to look at. I read he wants to be the face of boxing.
Well, I hope he succeeds. I got another email. Then we're going to take a break, and then I got one more, and we'll start breaking down all the big fights. This is from Rick. Rick says, "Hey, Billy C, I've been listening to you daily for the past several months, and I'm stoked to hear you may be doing your next event in upstate New York. As much as I'm now dying to try a slice of Sal's Pizza, I'm a Saratoga. A Saratoga native, and traveling would be much easier. If you do happen to have your event up in upstate New York, you can certainly count on two here showing up, and maybe Sal can even bring some pizza with him." Man, I'm glad to hear we got somebody from Saratoga. Saratoga's not too far from our studio right here in Lake George. As far as our event, right now it's looking more like it's going to be some other place. So we will keep you posted on that, when and if we even have it, which we thought we originally were going to have it in the middle of January, but we'll see. We'll see about that. We may be shifting gears and locating it somewhere else. So keep your eyes peeled and ears open for that. I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, I got one more email to read, Sal, and then we'll start breaking down the big fights. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks. Like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. I didn't even hit that right button. I said, I don't know what's going on. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons today, and I'm talking, and all of a sudden I realized that no meters are moving because I don't have the buttons pressed. But and we're back. And I'm about to read the last email that we have today. Sometimes it's just one of those days. This one's from my man Matt. He says, hey, Billy C., thank you for reading my top 5 on Wednesday. I'm glad you and Sal appreciated the bouts I chose. I would love to meet you guys and catch a fight. Let me know the details to the January event. Man, we got a lot of interest in the January event already, and I will see what I can do. We wanted to do this event down south because it makes the most sense to have it in a warmer place, especially in January. Upstate New York is great if you like to ski and stuff like that. But we'll keep everybody posted. Don't worry. And I appreciate you guys and the last emailer reaching out. He says, anyway, as I stated, I'll be in attendance for the Lomachenko-Rigondeaux fight, and it's bigger than the Super Bowl for me. I'm predicting a Lomachenko stoppage in 8 to 10 rounds. Lomachenko has advantages in both size and age, in addition to being a world-class talent. Rigondeaux could possibly overcome one of those factors, but I don't think all three. After some even initial rounds, Lomachenko will begin to crack the Rigondeaux puzzle, but not before some pestering counters by the Jackal. The Jackal will finally have an opponent which will force the talented to emerge and engage action. In the end, Lomachenko's advantages will wear down Rigondeaux for the victory in an entertaining bout. Finally, I predict this fight will do over 3 million views on each ESPN and will turn Lomachenko into a bona fide star. Despite the general public not being able to dissect all of the boxing strategy and action like ourselves, people understand and cherish greatness. With this win, Lomachenko will emerge as the pound-for-pound number one and become boxing's new superstar. While our focus to the big fight will be on the 3 hot fights this weekend, Daniel Dubois, Michael Connor, and Shakur Stevenson are hot prospects is fighting this weekend. He says, from my perspective, all 3 are exciting to watch and develop. Of the 3, which prospect do you and Sal have your eye on the most? To be honest with you, right now, Daniel Dubois is mine. What about you, Sal? I mean, I'm going to be breaking that fight down, but of those 3, Shakur Stevenson, he's the guy that Larry told us about before he even made a splash in the Olympics, and Michael Conlon is an up and coming fighter as well. Of those 3, who are you looking most forward to seeing?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Dubois, but I want to keep my eye on, like Larry suggests, on Stevenson. I think he's going to be something special. I think he's going to be honing in and learning and developing. And they all 3 are great prospects. But you know how hard it is to get through the maze and rise to the top. So we'll see who has the legs to stand and the longevity to go through the maze. That's about it.
He says, also note, to your listeners, Michael Conlon will be having an after-fight party at Jack Dempsey's in New York City.
Wow.
I know I'll be there with a beer after the fight. He says, by the way, Sal, Lenovo wings are some of the absolute best. Here in Buffalo, I prefer my wings charred grilled. Yes, even for hot wings. He says it's something that I've only found in Buffalo. You make the wings like normal, and then after saucing them, throw them on the pit. The wings end up crispy with the hot sauce vaporized where you can still taste it, less messy too. There's a little tip from Buffalo for you, Sal.
Yeah, I like those Buffalo wings, just plain, like you just said, crispy and plain. That's how I could eat them, and you are 100% correctamundo. Who used to say that? Forget about it. That was Fonzie.
He says, enjoy the fights this weekend, guys, and here's to swimming with bow-legged women. I want to swim.
Robert Shaw.
Yeah, I want that. But anyway, thanks for the email.
Robert Shaw with Jaws. That's great. Great call.
Thanks for the email, Matt. We appreciate interacting with you, and we hope that you enjoy your time at the fights this weekend. And let us know what you experienced. Drop me an email, and I'll be glad to read it on Monday. All right, the fights for this weekend. Let's break them down and give you our predictions. First and foremost, the fight tonight I want to talk about. No, it's not Luis Ortiz against Daniel Martz. That's not going to be a fight. Luis Ortiz is going to knock out Daniel Martz. There's no question about that in my mind. I've had Martz on a couple of my events in Florida, and let's just say he tries hard. He's a young kid, no formal training, and it certainly shows. You'll see it if you get to watch that tonight. But the main event, Ahmed Ibilai against Jean Pascal. It's an interesting fight. Jean Pascal is a former world light heavyweight champion, and he's a super middleweight title challenger. And with that said, that's what I thought put him on the map. The fight that he had way back in 2008 against Carl Froch was one of the most exciting fights and entertaining fights I've seen in quite some time, considering it's almost been 10 years ago. It happened in December of 2008. What an exciting fight that was, back and forth. How the fight even went to the scorecards is beyond me. And I thought that Jean Pascal arrived on the scene that night when he fought for a shot at the WBC World Super Middleweight title. And by the way, that's when Carl Froch won it. It was vacant, and he won a unanimous 12-round decision over Jean Pascal. But after that fight, Jean Pascal kicked it up a notch, because not only did he kick it up a notch in getting a win in his very next fight against Pablo Daniel Zamora Nieves. Whew, there's a lot of names in that guy's name. But he moved up in weight for his next fight against Adrian Daconou. And Daconou was undefeated at the time, 26-0. He fought in Canada and beat him in a 12-round decision. Some people didn't like the decision, but it didn't matter, because Jean Pascal moved up to Silvio Branco, stopped him, had a rematch with Daconou, won that one, fought and beat Chad Dawson, won the world title. He won the WBC light heavyweight title against Daconou, who had it. Then had two fights back-to-back, a draw and then a unanimous decision loss to B-Hop. And he started to slide a little bit in terms of his boxing ability. I think it was a combination of aging and lack of interest. He started losing interest. He did get a win against Georgie Blades, and then a big win against Lucien Boutte. But then his career after Robert Belanti, he had a no contest after 2 rounds there. He fought Sergey Kovalev a couple of times. Basically, his last 6 fights, 2 wins, 1 by knockout, 3 losses. 2 of those 3 losses by stoppage. He got stopped by Kovalev both times. He couldn't continue after the 7th round in the second fight, and was waved off via a TKO in the 8th round of the first fight. But he did pick up a win against undefeated Yuniesky Gonzalez between those 2 fights. His last fight, Elder Alvarez, June of this year, lost a majority decision. He's coming back. He's fighting Ibilai tonight. Ibilai, who the hell is Ibilai? That's what I want to know. Jean Pascal is ranked number 8 in the world by the computer. I want to know, who the hell is Ibilai? Ibilai is an undefeated fighter, 16-0 with 13 knockouts. He's ranked number 40 by the computer. He's the A side of this fight, actually. He's 27 years old. He's got a substantial age advantage over Jean Pascal, who's 35. He also has a couple of inch height advantage and 1 inch reach advantage. But this guy has never fought anybody of the caliber of Jean Pascal. As a matter of fact, the 2 fights that didn't go, that he didn't win by knockout was against Andrew Hernandez and Mauricio Hilario, both decent fighters, but nothing to write home about. Listen, this is going to be a classic youth versus age, and they're trying to use Jean Pascal to put a name on Ibilai's record. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jean Pascal is going to find the powers within and beat this kid. Although this kid can box, and if he fights smart, I think Jean Pascal, the advantage that he has over him, he has a tendency to get people to fight his style fight. I just don't think Ibilai has fought the level of opposition and gained the experience in his 16 professional fights and his 44 rounds as a pro. With the level of opposition that he's fought, he's taken a huge step up. Unless Jean Pascal has aged so drastically, I'm picking the underdog in this fight, Jean Pascal. What do you think?
Well, there you go. Tell you what, we know what Ibilai is trying to do with his career now. As you said, he's been one of those fighters that has been positioned and managed to build a resume of maybe nondescript fighters, however, getting that O behind his record. And that's what they've done with 16 wins, not a world of experience. I didn't hear or know much about his amateur background, but I'm hoping he had an extensive one. Jean Pasquale, we've seen him. He's a warrior. He's a tough guy. And maybe his best days might be behind him. And that's what they're counting on because, as you suggested, Billy I is the A side. And they're wanting him to build onto his resume with a name fighter like Jean Pascal. Pascal is going to have some answers for that, and it should be a good fight. I don't know too much about this Billy I, but taking what it is and to make it interesting, I'm going to look at him today and see. So I want to see what he really can possess and what he can do against Jean Pasquale. I'm gonna shoot in the dark and just say I think Billy I is going to be one of those fighters that they're investing in that they know can rise to the occasion, and that is not just an undefeated record, and that is going to pull out the best that he's been waiting to do and against a name opponent. And we'll see what this package, once it's unwrapped on the fight, we'll see what he can deliver. So I'm going to see what Billy I can do. I'm going to go with Billy I.
Next fight I'm going to talk about is James DeGale going up, or DeGale, however you say it, going up against Khalib Truax. DeGale is a real deal. He's the IBF World Super Middleweight Champion. He's ranked number 5 in the world by the computer. He's a southpaw, 6 foot tall. He's only got the one loss, and that fight was a pretty decent fight against George Groves. He lost a majority of decisions. Many people think that he won, but that was also 6 years ago. He fought Georgie Groves in 2011. In his last fight, what a great fight. I mean, could that be one of our fights of the year when he fought Badou Jack in January? See, this is what I'm saying. This has been such a good year for boxing.
A great
year. We have
a
tendency to forget. This fight took place January 14th of this year. Badou Jack, I mean, if you recall, Badou Jack was down in round 1. DeGale was down in round 12. It was back and forth for 12 rounds. Ended up being a draw, a majority decision draw, which I felt at the time, and still do, was the right decision. Nonetheless, DeGale held on to his title, hasn't fought since. He's got some very impressive wins. Lucien Boutte, one of the Andre Durrell. Brandon Gonzalez was an up-and-coming big guy that everybody was highly touting. Marco Antonio Parabon. Everybody that's put in front of him, he's won. He's 31 years old, 6 foot tall, 74-inch reach. He steps in the ring with Khalib Truax, who's very similar in height. DeGale's ranked number 5 by the computer. Khalib Truax, number 57. Why is this guy getting a shot at James DeGale? I can't believe it. It's a joke. Former world middleweight title challenger when he fought Danny Jacobs back in 2015. He did have an impressive win against Keandre Leatherwood. He was stopped by Anthony Durrell. He was stopped by Daniel Jacobs. Listen, Khalib Truax out of Minnesota, no disrespect. He's ranked number 57 in the super middleweight division. Doesn't stand a chance. This guy's going to be going to sleep or at the very least getting beat up for 12 rounds. What's your thoughts on this fight?
His last name's Truax?
This is true.
It's Truax. Well, that's what his name is. He's going to get truly axed. I think that James DeGale is going to have too much experience, too much firepower, and it's going to be a rough fight, rough night for Truax, I think, in my humble opinion. And I think what we're going to see here is a couple good rounds, and he'll have a moment or two. But DeGale is experienced. He knows what he's getting into, and he's going to take advantage of everything he can. And he's going to be the veteran out there, and I think DeGale is going to win big in the middle of the fight, by the middle of the fight.
The next fight I'm going to look at is one that's going to be on HBO. And, I love the fight. And I'm not saying it's not HBO caliber. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see these kinds of fights because it's going to be a war. But I'm just so surprised that HBO didn't want this to be a title fight for 12 rounds, and they forced it to be a 10-round fight when both fighters and both promoters and both management teams wanted it to be a 12-round fight. It was going to be an elimination fight, but the powers that be, the TV execs that don't know a left hook from a fish hook said no. Miguel Roman, former world title challenger for both featherweight and lightweight divisions. Been around a long time. The computer sees him at super feather at number 11 in the world. He's only 32 years old, considering he's fought 426 rounds, 69 total fights with a record of 57 wins, 44 by knockout, and 12 losses. Who hasn't he fought? I'll tell you. Wow. He's fought everybody. that has been put in front of him. He's been in tough. One of his biggest wins was a vicious victory over Daniel Ponce de Leon back in 2014. Antonio DeMarco, when he got his world title shot, was stopped in 5, but he's fought and beat some really good opposition. Dante Jardin, I mentioned Daniel Ponce de Leon, and recently he lost to Takashari Miura, but he came back with Nuri Sagulian in June of this year when he stopped him in the final round. He's had a long career challenge for the featherweight title against Jonathan Barrios back in 2011, fighting Antonio Escalante, losing to him, close decisions to Miguel Beltran. I mean, he's been around forever. He's a warrior. Of his 12 losses, only stopped twice. And who's he step in the ring with? Another warrior in Orlando Salido, former world featherweight and super featherweight. Well, he was a former world featherweight champion, and he was a former world super featherweight interim champion. Does that count? I don't know. He's ranked number 6 in that division at the super featherweight division. He's coming off of in his last 4 fights, 1 win in his last fight against Artices Perez, but then back-to-back draws against Francisco Vargas and Roman Martinez when he challenged Romy Rocky Martinez for his super featherweight title. He got a draw. He had gotten an unfavorable decision in the previous fight, but he did beat Vasyl Lomachenko after Vasyl Lomachenko had his first win. It was for a vacant title. He won a split decision over him. He's got wins over Orlando Cruz. He got wins over Juanma Lopez, not 1 but 2. Gamboa he lost to. He lost to Mikey Garcia. I mean, Cristobal Cruz he won the title to from back in 2010. Cristobal Cruz was a tough guy. What I like about this guy is that he's a warrior. He's fighting another warrior. This is almost a guaranteed action-packed fight. Yeah. I'm leaning with Orlando Salido, even though sometimes he's what makes this fight so intriguing is that both of them, sometimes they fight like they're Hall of Famers, and other times they fight like they're opponents. I just don't know who's gonna show up on Saturday night. I'm picking Salido in this one. Who do you like?
I'm gonna pick Salido too. I got Salido. I think he's gonna, know that his days, this is the time he's got to shine. He's gonna prevail and he's gonna come through. I think Roman has, like you said, he's a warrior. He's been tested. He's been out there. He's given it his all. He's gotten so many. He has a resume of fights that are endless, and I think Salido is going to rise to the occasion, and he'll be the winner coming this weekend.
The next fight I wanted to talk about is actually on the undercard of the DeGale fight, and it's really a fight I'm looking forward to big time. Daniel Dubois, Triple D, if you will, Daniel Dubois, Dynamite Daniel Dubois. He's a heavyweight that we've been talking about. He's ranked at number 138 in the world. He's undefeated at 5-0. All of his wins coming by knockouts. He's only gone 7 rounds of his 5 fights. Young kid, 20 years old, 6'5", out of England. He's fought the 5 fights. Combined record of his opponents so far: 40 wins, 10 losses, no draws. 50 fights, 10 of his 5 fights. He's only gone 7 rounds total. The 50 fights are 10 times his total. So, in other words, he's got 5 fights. His opponents have fought 50. So, the opponents have fought 10 times the amount of his total fights, and he's only had to go 7 rounds. This guy's the real deal. He steps in with a guy. This is how good he is. Let me just give you an example. Triple D, Daniel Dubois, is 5-0, 7 rounds, 5 knockouts. The computer ranks him already at 138. Doesn't sound great, right? But he steps in with Dorian Darch, who's got a record of 12 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, 18 total fights, 73 total rounds. What does the computer see him at? 232. He's fought and lost to some good guys, and he's beaten some decent guys. As a matter of fact, a similar opponent that he fought last year was David Howe. He won a 4-round decision, and Daniel Dubois knocked out Howe. How's this fight going to go? It's going to go in Dubois' way. Look for Dubois to continue his knockout ways. I'm picking Triple D, with a knockout win. Your thoughts, Sal?
Well, you just said it right there. This guy's definitely the A side. This guy's the future of where he is going to shine and hit people behind him. And this is going to be another little test, but another little notch in his gun. So Dubois this guy's not gonna see the end of the round. End of the last round.
Yeah, no.
When I said Dubois,
right?
No, but Dubois is gonna win.
Right. Well, by knockout.
By knockout, yes, of course. Yeah, he's gonna win by knockout. Maybe go 5 rounds.
Oh, it's never gonna go. I don't think it's gonna go 5 rounds at all. I really don't. But anyway, and now the main fight of the weekend: Vasyl Lomachenko going up against Guillermo Rigondeaux. This is a fight fan's dream matchup. Vasyl Lomachenko, he's the WBO World Junior Lightweight Champion. He's ranked number 1 in the world at that weight class, junior lightweight, super featherweight, however you want to look at it. 5'6". He's a southpaw. He's 29 years old. Had a gazillion fights as an amateur. How many, you say? Well, how about this fight against Rigondeaux and Vasyl Lomachenko combined? They had 904 fights and 4 gold medals between the two of these guys in the amateurs.
Unbelievable.
That's an understatement, So he is undefeated. Well, he's got the 1 loss against Orlando Salido, 9 wins, 7 by knockout, 1 loss when he fought for a world title in his very first fight. Did not get it, but got it in his second attempt in his third pro fight. He's got he kicked off his pro debut against Jose Ramirez, who was 25-3, and knocked him out in 4. Did lose to Salido in 2014, but then followed that up with impressive wins over Gary Russell, Sierra Takahum. He also beat Roman Rocky Martinez in 2016. He beat Nicholas Walters, which we all thought was going to be a competitive fight. He fought Jason Sosha, and he, in his last fight, fought Miguel Mariaga. This is an exciting guy. What I love about Vasyl Lomachenko is that he is what I call the sweet science. He is not afraid to engage. You could stand right in front of him and throw punches and not be able to hit him all the while he's hitting you. Now, he steps in with a guy that does the same thing, Guillermo Rigondeaux. The problem with Rigondeaux is he's been labeled a boring fighter because he's so hard to hit, and he's primarily a counterpuncher, although he has shown that he can put his foot on the gas pedal. In 2014, Yotan, he knocked him out in 1 round, 1 punch. It was a vicious knockout. In 2 rounds, James Dickens last year, that guy couldn't continue after that. And also Amagasa in 2014 knocked him out in 11. So he can knock fighters out. There's no question about it. He's much older at 37, 17 wins, no losses, 11 of his wins coming by knockout. The thing about him is he's the WBA and IBO super bantamweight champion. He's moving up not 1 but 2 weight classes. There is a rehydration clause in this. He is a smaller fighter at super bantamweight, ranked number 2 in the world. He's 2 inches shorter, but he has a 3-inch reach advantage. I appreciate him moving up. Nobody wants to fight this guy. Risk versus reward. He fought and beat guys like Willie Big Bang Casey, Rico Ramos, Roberto Marroquin, who's a tough guy, Nonito Donaire, King Kong Agbeko, and the fights that I told you earlier, James Dickens and Yotan. And then he also beat Duran Francisco. And Duran Francisco was another tough opponent. So what we're going to see here is 2 very technically savvy fighters, and it's going to be interesting to see who is going to be able to put their foot on the gas pedal and drive this bus, because I think what's going to happen in this fight is we're going to have kind of a slow start. I think both fighters are going to try to feel themselves out. 2 southpaws, by the way, which I think brings a little interest to this fight, because most of the time you'll see a southpaw fighting an orthodox fighter, And then you're saying, oh, how does the Orthodox fighter handle himself against a southpaw? And generally, a southpaw has got plenty of experience fighting Orthodox fighters because that's mostly who they spar, et cetera, et cetera. But when a southpaw fights a southpaw, that's usually an interesting fight. I'm wondering if they'll be switching sides. I know Lomachenko likes to do that sometimes. And we'll see if Rigondeaux joins that party. Who's going to win? Well, this is a tough one to pick. You could flip a coin. Will the pro experience of Rigondeaux help him? Will the age advantage help Vasyl Lomachenko? At the end of the day, we got two very special fighters fighting each other, and I think it's going to boil down to age. I really do. I think that I'm going to go back to my favorite short story written by Jack London called A Piece of Steak. And the reason I'm going to go back to that is the reason why I'm picking Vasyl Lomachenko. I think their talent is very similar. I think Lomachenko is on the rise. He's a little more exciting. He's got more of a personality that will thrive in the sport of boxing. It's his time, and he's got a great dance partner to shine on Saturday night. I think this is going to be a chess match fight, but at the end, I'm picking Vasyl Lomachenko. And I'm picking him to win in an exciting fashion. His official arrival as a superstar, just like the email we got from Matthew Quinn earlier, will take place on Saturday night. I'm picking Vasyl Lomachenko in an exciting second-half fight, and he will win this fight, I believe, by stoppage. What do you think, Sal?
Bill, I'll tell you, I'm going to concur with you. I see everything you just mentioned about both these fighters to be true and right on. I mean, you've got a very exciting fight potentially happening Saturday night, and I don't think they're going to disappoint us. It's going to be tactical. It's going to be a chess game. You're going to see, I think, Lomachenko wanted to challenge and fight from both sides. But I think ultimately his ability to punch and not be there, just like Rigondeaux being a counterpuncher. I think Vasyl Lomachenko, like I said, this guy wants to be not just a champion. This guy wants to be special. He wants to be a mark. He wants to be a legacy in the sport of boxing. So those are big aspirations, and he's challenging himself. And I think ultimately he's going to put on a big display Saturday night. I think he's going to do a great job. I think Rigondeaux, not cutting him short, but he's going to do a fabulous job. But ultimately, I think that you're going to see Lomachenko win by a knockout in a big fashion later in the fight.
Two fights I didn't mention. Actually, three fights. Lee Selby and Ramirez, and Tevin Farmer and Ogawa, and Dennis Shakirov against Rene Alvarado. I think the Farmer-Ogawa fight and the Shakirov Rene Alvarado fight are both going to be pretty close fights. I didn't break them down because I just didn't have the time, but I like them. You can watch the Shakirov Alvarado on HBO Latino delayed broadcast, and the Tevin Farmer Ogawa fight will be the undercard on their Salido Roman broadcast. So we got a lot of fights we'll be talking about on Monday. But listen, we're going to take a short break when we come right now, and when we come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan join us, and we'll get his thoughts on the big fight schedule for this weekend. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it. If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And we got a lot of good fights scheduled for this weekend. And joining us right now to give us his thoughts, especially on the big one, is my man Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you today?
I'm doing fantabulous. How you doing
fantabulous,
today?
You say? Well, I'm doing well. I don't know about fantabulous, but I'm doing well.
Well, that's good. That's good. We're glad to hear that. We're glad to hear that. A couple of big fights this weekend, Dax. You know, before I ask you about the big one, I want to ask you about the fight tonight because I guess I'm in the minority here, but I think Jean Pascal is going to be too much for Billy. Unless this is a clear case of Jean Pascal just being done as a fighter, and they finally need to put a name on Ahmed's resume. I just don't see, his performances against the mediocre at best opposition he's faced going to be any type of preparation for Jean Pascal. Can you give us your thoughts on this fight?
Well, logic would say the same thing, but we also thought that in the Uniseki Gonzalez fight, where Jean Pascal got the nod, but more or less Uniseki Gonzalez was robbed. Jean Pascal, he really doesn't have that desire anymore, regardless of the fact what you mentioned, how he is an awkward fighter. He has a way of making guys fight his style, and that has always worked out to the benefit of him, but, he doesn't have that desire anymore, in my opinion. So that's what's going to work against him. And I do agree. I think that Jean Pascal now is being used more or less as a name on a resume to help build up other fighters. Why he's complacent doing that, I don't know, but that's exactly how I see it. And if Jean Pascal should come out ahead tonight, I don't see it as a surprise or an upset. But again, on the opposite side, I really don't think he's going to, and it's not a surprise if he loses.
I think what you just said, I agree with 100% in terms of, he clearly has seemed to have lost the desire. I mean, at one point he was going to be a cop or something in Canada and wanted to go that route. But why would you why would you be the gatekeeper, so to speak? I mean, if they're throwing a lot of money at him, I could see it. But a fight like this could get him another big payday against a significant opponent. I mean, could his interest have been increased a little bit in this fight, looking at it as an opportunity?
looking at the way he's performed over the last few years, even if his interest is back and he does want to give it one more run, considering the guys that we have holding the world titles minus Kovalev, it would be a bad idea, in my opinion, for Jean Pascal to even go down that road because I don't see it ending well for him. But you never know what's going through the mind of these guys. You brought up a good point just a few years ago. Jean Pascal wasn't even sure if he wanted to be a fighter or he wanted to go into law enforcement. So, this is a guy right here who's maybe on the fence. He doesn't know what to do. He's having a hard time giving up his boxing career. But then on the other hand, he doesn't really know what to do in the future. We've seen that before with a lot of guys. So only time will tell. And tonight will be Tonight, may just tell us that story, exactly what is next for Jean Pascal. This may be the make or break the decision fight for him.
One other fight I want to ask you about before we get to the big one is Orlando Salido against Mickey Roman. It seems like a tale of two similar fighters fighting each other. It spells that we are going to have an action-packed fight. I'm just confused about HBO and some of their moves that they made. In terms of the length of this fight, they wouldn't allow it to be for a belt or an interim belt, whatever the case is. But the matchup is definitely good, and in a way, I like the fact that they're showcasing a fight between two guys that don't have those glamorous old records, which I really like. And the best part of this is, at least the way I see it, Dax, is that it is going to be an entertaining fight. Both of them come with that kind of a style that will make an entertaining fight. But like I said earlier with Sal, both guys have a tendency to come in either looking real good or looking not so much. And I think if they both come in looking real good, we're in for a treat. If one comes in slightly behind the other, it's going to be a boring fight. What do you think about this fight?
I think, first of all, what you said there, and for a real treat, when either one of these guys are in there and they're performing at their best, it always is a treat. And yes, you're right, those numbers that they have behind them seems to be, because of this error, those losses don't seem to sell. So they see a guy with 13 losses, 12 losses, or even 5 losses in this era. Why are they going to headline them and main event them? Because that's not what the fans are going to gravitate to, unfortunately. It's also a reason why, as I mentioned earlier this week, you have these younger fans naming Orlando Salido as a Puerto Rican fighter. Not only a Puerto Rican fighter, but the greatest Puerto Rican fighter of all time, and you can't tell them any different. So as far as this goes, who does have a little bit left? Both guys are definitely at the tail end of their career. Earlier this year, Roman was stopped by Takashi Miura in brutal fashion, and Orlando Salido, as you stated earlier on, in his last several fights, he's had a couple draws. He hasn't looked all that great, but I think maybe because Miguel Roman hasn't had as much time to recover from that Takashi Miura loss, that's going to work into the benefit of Orlando Salido. So I'm going to have to go with Salido here, and, just slightly. But again, at this point in time in their careers, that stage, that many belts, you never know who's aged the most overnight.
And finally, the big fight that most true boxing fans are looking forward to is going to put Vasyl Lomachenko up against Guillermo Rigondeaux. Even though Rigondeaux is moving up 2 weight classes, and even though there is a rehydration clause in this fight, it still seems to me like a bigger guy fighting a smaller guy. What's your thoughts on this fight? Your breakdown, your who's going to win, etc., etc., etc.
Etc. First of all, this definitely is a super fight. You wouldn't know it by the way some of the fans are reacting, but it is truly a super fight. It's taking place in an era of overly built pay-per-view showdowns with weak undercards, and these fighters that are mysteriously ranked in order to give these belt holders showcase bouts that help give an aura of invincibility. It's truly an anti-era throwback type contest. When you look at both fighters, they've had such a similar path getting to where they are. Both of them are 2-time Olympic gold medalists. Both of them haven't been professional for the amount of time that you would think, considering that they have had so much amateur experience, and they're both, Lomachenko is going to be 30 and Rigondeaux is leading into his late 30s. But what you want to do is you want to look, to me, in my opinion, exactly where does each guy stand right now. Rigondeaux, despite being older, I don't think he's more shop-worn than Lomachenko, contrary to what a lot of people believe, I actually think he's the fresher fighter. Why do I think that? Because he had such a long gap since his amateur career, and he's only had those 17 fights until now, and a lot of guys haven't been willing to face him. So Rigondeaux has really had a lot of gaps of inactivity while staying in peak performance and peak shape. Lomachenko was not a big one-punch fighter, meaning, we don't see him get guys out of there with a single punch. He needs a lot of volume. Rigondeaux is a guy that has, at least to this point in time, been very hard to hit. Most of all, what I think is that there is a reach advantage for Rigondeaux that's going to help him with his style that makes Lomachenko come forward. Lomachenko is very effective in the pocket, but you're only going to be in the pocket for short bursts of time. We've never seen Lomachenko have to come and actually press a fight and go around the ring. Rigondeaux has a chip on his shoulder. Why? Because boxing more or less has done that to him, whether or not they won't broadcast him because they bill him as boring, whether or not guys won't sign to fight him. You brought up something earlier on I listened to that said they have him ranked number 2 at super bantamweight. Above him they have Jesse Magdaleno. Jesse's a very good fighter, but he's not in the league of Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he hasn't even fought the competition Rigondeaux has. Yes, they both beat Nonito Donaire, but when Rigondeaux beat him, Nonito Donaire was a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter. My official pick here is going to be Guillermo Rigondeaux. Why? Because it's his last chance at a mega fight like this. He knows it. He's 37 years old, and he also has that style, as I can't stress enough, that Vasyl Lomachenko has never dealt with. And that is going to be the difference in this fight to me. It's going to be the desire, it's going to be the chip on the shoulder, and it's going to be something Lomachenko has never dealt with.
Dax, interesting points.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of the purse for this fight? Because another thing is Rigondeaux really hasn't made a ton of money. And, you would think that, and Lomachenko is getting in a position where he's going to be a high-paid fighter. Is Rigondeaux being paid well for this fight? And, is he looking at money as a motivator in terms of, him knowing that he beats Lomachenko? He's in for at least a huge payday, even if he's not being treated fairly for this fight.
I believe that Rigondeaux is getting in the low 100,000s, somewhere around the 125,000 was what I heard about a month ago. And I believe Lomachenko's getting somewhere about around 2.5. So, as terms as into the future, this is more or less, remember, this is a fight that Rigondeaux asked for. Rigondeaux sought after Lomachenko. This is a guy who offered to give up all his titles if anybody who won them would guarantee that they would fight him first, just in order to get these big fights. Rigondeaux, it's beyond money now. He wants to prove to the world he already knows for himself what type of skill set he possesses, and that's something that's very frustrating for a fighter. And Rigondeaux, at 37 years old, he wants to get that done. He has one chance to make his legacy, and that chance is here. Boxing has done Guillermo Rigondeaux wrong, along with Gary Hyde, who managed his career horribly. So, and that's more or less the motivator here for Guillermo Rigondeaux is I want to prove, I want to know that my amateur career and my professional career wasn't in vain.
And I also think he's the last fighter under contract with Rock Nation because they're actually being billed as a co-promoter for this event. That?
Rock Nation, I have no opinion on Rock Nation because anything I have to say about Rock Nation is filled with profanity.
Oh, boy.
Well, you and Sal, man, you guys got to calm that crap down, between the two you guys, I'm getting in trouble here.
You know what? When you can't even make a phone call to check on one of your fighters, how are you doing? You have a company, you can't make a phone call? What type of person are you? Forget about what type of person are you? You can't even send out a tweet on there hoping so-and-so is doing okay.
Nah, yeah, I agree with you there. Dax, thanks for coming on so quick, and enjoy the fights. We're looking forward to your recap on Monday, my man.
All right, one last thing. Bill, Sal, you guys talk about this after. In my opinion, is this a fight that both these guys actually needed? Because remember, over the last few fights, even though Vasyl Lomachenko has been very dominant, a lot of people have been criticizing him because he's been so dominant, saying that his opponent's been handpicked. Even the Nicholas Walters, they're saying he was handpicked to go in there against Lomachenko to look good. And of course, we know Rigondeaux has a hard time getting fights at all. So you think this is a fight that both of them actually needed to get the fans interested in them again?
Do I think that that's the case?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, do you think that's the case where they needed to fight each other because nobody can question the skill set of Rigondeaux, nobody can question the skill set of Lomachenko, but because they dominate all their other opponents, they make them look ordinary, and we're talking about elite caliber opponents. Everybody has actually questioned these opponents, and they're actually accusing them, or Lomachenko recently, as, getting hand-picked opponents.
Well, what I find comical about that, Dax, is they're probably the same type of fan that thinks Floyd Mayweather is so great. Anytime you get a guy that comes up and starts getting accolades, you start hearing that kind of propaganda, because that's the way I would like to look at it. It's propaganda. It's BS. The truth of the matter is that, and we can see this as clear as day with the World Boxing Super Series, the American fighters, and they need to change this, but the American fighters seem to be looking at the easy road, and they look at the least risk for the maximum amount of reward, which I'll be the first to admit is not a bad thing if you can get the most that you can for playing tiddlywinks. I get it, but the fact still remains that this sport is really you're making or breaking your legacy, so to speak, in this sport by fighting the right guys, by having the right dance partners, by challenging yourself. And it just seems to me that guys that are from out of the U.S., like Rigondeaux and Vasyl Lomachenko, don't get the credit they deserve in the United States. If you talk to anybody else anywhere else, they recognize the same points you make. So I think that that's just coming from, as all three of us agree, the ignorant young fan that really has bought into the smokescreen BS that has been crammed down their throat. I don't know if I can say it in any better way, to be honest with you.
As for the World Boxing Super Series, just, to let the fans know, there is going to be a second World Boxing Super Series after this is done. So there is going to be another Muhammad Ali Cup, and that's going to be announced in March, which weight classes are. And the one last thing on this fight, it kind of gives like this old feeling, doesn't it, Bill? Sal, there's like, as the days count down to this fight, these days seem long. You're looking forward to it. It's going to be on free TV. It's taking place in Madison Square Garden. I feel like this is 1981, 1982 again. That's how big and how significant this fight is. That's how much skill set that's going to be in there. And unfortunately, or I should say, I hope that a lot of these younger fans that fall for these hand-fed opponents and these showcase fights, they don't fall short and they truly appreciate what type of skill set is in there.
Well, the only problem is that the network itself, and I agree with everything you said. Here we are. We're lined up. The bullseye is set, and what does ESPN do? They pull the only boxing guy out of the mix, aside from Timothy Bradley, out of the broadcast, and they move Mark Kriegel in there. What's your thoughts about that? That guy's a clown. How does it? I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. You know more than anyone about me, Dax, with Teddy Atlas. But the truth of the matter is whether you agree with what he says and him spitting all over you when he gets mad. I mean, But the truth of the matter is he's a boxing guy. Mark Kriegel is a writer that is posing as a boxing guy. I think this was a stupid mistake by ESPN. What's your quick thoughts on that?
I believe so. And as far as Teddy Atlas goes, it doesn't matter if you like him, you dislike him. Some people tune in just because his style, those rants, a lot of people look forward to those rants because they're amusing. But again, as you stated, he's a boxing guy and they're always on point. But what makes Teddy Atlas so special behind that microphone is, unlike all these other guys, even Al Bernstein, as of late, has become more or less a company man or a rah-rah man, however you'd like to call it. Teddy Atlas, those rants, what he says when he gets mad, those outbursts, they're genuine. They're not scripted. They're not for the cameras. They're genuine emotions that just, come out of him at that point in time because of what he's feeling due to whatever took place at that moment. And that's what makes Teddy Atlas special above all these other guys. And that's generally why it's a shame, because Teddy Atlas is going to tell the truth. Right or wrong, he's going to tell what he's feeling inside at that point in time in that moment. And boxing doesn't have too many of those guys around anymore, if any, other than Teddy Atlas.
Good point, Dax. Dax, we'll catch you on Monday, my man.
All right, everybody, enjoy the fights.
Dax Khan, you could check his column out up on BillyCBoxing.com. As a matter of fact, without Dax, we wouldn't have hardly any news up there because he's working hard at getting us all caught up on that. But Sal, this whole thing with Teddy Atlas, Dax just made an interesting point about the commentators today seeming to be following the company rule. You got to say this, you got to say that, you don't say this, don't try to offend anybody, blah, blah, blah. And you and I were talking off air the other day about Larry Merchant and how, what he brought to the sport, what we both didn't like about him. I mean, we don't have to get into that, but the truth of the matter is that for ESPN to make a move like this and kick a guy to the curb who's been kind of their face, if not a good portion of their face for almost 2 decades, 20 years, for a guy that came onto the scene and in 1 week clearly agitated Teddy enough for him to jump on his back, so to speak, busting his balls, trying to expose the fact that Mark Kriegel was nothing less than a scribe, and that's what he is. And to have the scribe win over Teddy Atlas in terms and in the eyes of the suits or the exec at ESPN, I think that's laying the groundwork for what we may begin to see in the very near future. What's your thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, Bill, I think, as you and I have discussed on air, off air, this is the way some of these networks want to be perceived, that they are doing things as they can, politically correct. They're doing things where they can. They don't want to disrupt the apple cart, and God forbid one of their guys are called out on air. It could be devastating. So, everybody's supposed to be on even par. And like I said, one of the things I do appreciate about Teddy Atlas is that he is a boxing guy, and win, lose or draw, he's not gonna change his opinion or voice anything different than what he actually sees, perceives, and believes. I like that. Write that down. And I think that it is so true. And Teddy, it's a shame. It's a shame because whether you like him or not, the guy shoots from the hip and he tells it like it is. And I think that's where we are in the era of commentating and sports announcing. We can't shoot from the hip. We can't look to make our other correspondents look anything less than what they are. And that's where the apple cart gets disrupted. And that's where the suits make the calls. And, hey, it is what it is. And like I said, you've got to always watch your dotting your I's and crossing your T's. That's it. And Teddy said something that, or several times, that looked like he was flexing his muscle, telling him what is right, and they weren't ready for it. They didn't want it, especially when he was doing it with co-correspondents.
All right, so everybody listen. If you're watching or listening to this show, I want you to take this section right now that I'm about to say about ESPN, and you could do what you want with it. You can cut it out. You can forward it around. You can mark this spot on the YouTube and send it to everybody you know, because here's the truth, all right? ESPN has become kind of a joke, even in sports. Hear me out. ESPN is the king of sports, right? ESPN broadcasts nothing but sports, right? Well, here's what's happening, all right? I have always said that the sport of boxing needs more boxing people in it. It's the only sport that'll allow someone that has zero boxing knowledge and welcome them with open arms in the sport, as long as they have a checkbook with some money in it. And it's starting to ease out into the corporate part of it. For example, I don't expect every boxing network, ESPN, HBO, etc., to have a full-time boxing guy on staff as a suit, as an executive, as a business decision guy to decide which fights to take or which fights not to take. Obviously, that's not cost effective. But what they should consider is hiring a consultant to help them match and have the best fights. Obviously, the guys that are making the decision for the boxing on ESPN and HBO, etc., don't know a fish hook from a left hook. A great example is when you put these guys that come in out of nowhere with a good-looking record against another guy, and they're being that's a real fighter, and they get blown out. Okay, it's a joke, and so is taking a guy like Teddy Atlas out of the mix and leave you with no boxing people, with the exception of Timothy Bradley. Joe Tessitore, he's the guy driving the bus. You got to have a guy like that. Mark Kriegel, no disrespect, I don't know Mark Kriegel. He didn't slit my tires. He didn't do anything to my family. I don't have anything against this guy personally, but he's a joke when it comes to boxing. He's a writer. He's a Dan Raphael, if you will. Dan Raphael is a great writer, but he's not a boxing guy. He doesn't know anything about boxing. I challenge anybody to take a piece that Dan Raphael wrote or Mark Kriegel wrote and show me something in that article that shows you that they know anything about boxing aside from taking and giving you the info, the fight, the purse, the attendance, all the facts that you can get. Yes, they're reporters. They report that fact. I want a boxing guy that knows the difference between an overhand right and a hook to the body. I want a guy that knows the difference between being able to move and hit effectively on the move and avoid a punch or block a punch or deflect a punch or have a punch graze because you're moving your head. I want to be able to see and hear from a guy that knows that. Teddy Atlas is a guy that knows that. And here's another thing to consider about ESPN. I watch ESPN during the day a lot with the sound off. And let me tell you, I will challenge you to find a show that ESPN puts on a regular basis without some hot-looking chick that's doing the show. Do you think these women are that big on sports? I hope so, because a lot of times I think that they're just there for the eye candy. They're all there for the ratings. And maybe that's why ESPN made the decision to cut loose Teddy Atlas for an event. Just maybe they're trying to roll the dice and see if their viewership numbers go up, because there's people that complain about Teddy Atlas's honesty and his to the point. And what I complain about Teddy is, if you don't agree with Teddy, you're wrong. I don't agree with that. I think that is a wrong thing by Teddy Atlas, but nonetheless, I've learned to deal with it. No, in boxing, we need boxing people, and that's the big problem with the sport of boxing. And mark my words, don't be surprised if you start to see some hot-looking woman that's joining the ESPN boxing broadcast because they're eye candy. That's it. And I'm not, hey, listen, I'm an advocate for women and women's sports. There's no question about it. I have 2 daughters that I was involved with all through their schooling and everything else in the sports arena. So I don't want to hear from anybody that I'm being a chauvinist, because I'm not. Because there's plenty, like Susie Kober is actually one of the most knowledgeable football people. Forget if she's a man or a woman. Well, no, that didn't sound right. She's a woman, of course. She's a hot-looking woman. But the truth of the matter is she's a knowledgeable woman. So I'm not, I'm digging a hole here, I think, Sal.
Yeah, I'm going to pull a plug, man.
Help me out here. I need an elevator quick. But no, the truth. Do this, Bill. The truth of the matter is that if they're knowledgeable, fine. If they're eye candy, not so much. Though I enjoy the channels. Hey, Sal, what's your thoughts on this? I need to pass the ball pretty quickly.
I was afraid of that. Well, you are right. I mean, on some level here, Bill, and I agree with you. ESPN, I mean, the early days, we saw where it was evolving. I mean, when I was fighting on ESPN, you had Sal Marciano, you had Al Bernstein, you had even Steve Albert once or twice here and there, and these guys were making the name for themselves.
Steve, let me interrupt you for. I'll be like Slip Mahoney. Let me introduce you for a minute. But no, the thing is, Steve Albert. The way you just said, he would show up once or twice. But oh, by the way, they just put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I think they confused him with some of the other guys. But Steve Albert, Hall of Famer. Come on, Jim Gray, Hall of Famer. Give me a break, Jim Gray. I'd like to beat him with a baseball bat. Go ahead, finish your thoughts, Al.
I forgot where I was. I like that. And ESPN has been a flagship, has been a great network for boxing and other sports as well. And, like I said, the suits are in that room and they're making some calls and they're just tweaking a little bit. Have you seen anywhere that they're making definite plans to no longer have Teddy Atlas back on? I don't know. But I think, they're trying to create a little mix here and see what they're doing to roll the dice. And like I said, they're not marketing to you and I. They're marketing to the casual boxing fan and the guys that are going to look at certain things on the announcing and that are more level-based or receptive and without the credibility having to be questioned. That's all. I think that's the plan.
They did say, in ESPN's defense, they did announce that they are going to have Teddy Atlas doing a pre-recorded, little show, a little snippet during the broadcast. But, they also mentioned that, they got a lot of response from fans that were negative towards Teddy Atlas because of his criticisms on Mark Kriegel. And the truth of the matter is he was right. We've become that's the people in this country are so delicate that we can't. How does Colin Kaepernick win Person of the Year award? I don't know. I don't know. He's caused more grief than anything. And he gets Person of the Year award. Give me a break. Give me a break about that. But that's a whole nother ball game. And it's such a joke because somebody wanted to look good by giving him an award, even though all the negativity that he brought. And the truth of the matter is, it has nothing to do with his own stance, because his stance would have been fine, and he would have gotten a lot more people to back him financially if he would have just chose another way to protest instead of taking our national anthem and our military, and tie them in with it, and then have everybody else follow it for other reasons other than what Colin was doing is a joke. But that's besides the point. It really is. I better move on. Here's today's.
I think you're good. I think you're good. Keep it up, man. I want to see more fire. Stoke it, man.
Nah. I'm burning. I'm being.
You are. I think I was going to take your blood pressure and your temperature.
I'm being consumed by flames right now. So before I burst into any more flames, let's go to the videotape. No, let's go to our trivia question. Listen, if you're the first one to email me, Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com with the answer to this question, you will win your very own copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. Now, if you want a copy of the computer game anyway, just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on Title Bout banner, which you can't miss. The question is, I captured my first title, my first world title on my first try, but once I lost it, it took me 12 years and 5 attempts before I would win another title. Who am I? If you know this answer, email me, Billy at TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Don't forget, email me your top 5 or top 10, somewhere between 5 and 10 fights of 2017, and we'll read it on air. We had a great list that we read the other day, and I'm looking for your list. So go back and remember. And we were talking about a fight just today that took place in January, Badou Jack going up against the Gal, which was an exciting fight in the beginning of 2017, and it's a fight that's been forgotten already. Those are the kinds of fights that we've already had this year. So go back in your memory banks and send me your email, Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Your top 5 fights or 10 fights, however many you want to put in there, of 2017. And like I said, they do not have to be high-name fights, high-profile fights. It could have been a fight that you witnessed at a club show. And trust me, I know everybody that's been to a club show can contest to this, can attest to this, can contestament to this. Sal, there's a
Slip Mahoney, yeah.
There's a Slip Mahoney, but I'm sure they can attest to this. That a lot of club show fights are great, and most of the time the only people that get to see them are the people in attendance, and that's what makes them so great, and that's why you have to go and support your local promoter. But send me your list. We're open for it. I'm looking forward to these fights. I'm looking forward to talking about them on Monday. And before anybody sends me an email, what happened to our post-fight shows? Nothing. We're going to keep doing post-fight shows. We're in the middle of doing some upgrades behind the scene that you are going to be very impressed with come 2018. So that's all I'm going to say. But anyway, hey, listen. Enjoy the fights this weekend. We have a bunch of good ones that we'll be talking about. And, we will keep you posted on our schedule next week. I believe Friday is the day we're off next week, but we will let you know on Monday. And no, we're not going to 4 days. It's just for the holiday schedule. Because in case you don't know, that fat guy in the red suit, with the white trim, he's going to be dropping down the chimney in a couple of weeks. So he's fattening up. I heard rumors he's been eating over at Sal's to put on the extra weight he needs. But anyway, listen, enjoy the fights this weekend. But make sure you tune in Monday morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.